Have you ever, actually stopped to think about what your ego is costing you on a daily basis?
Oh, the literal energy drain of it.
Right,
Yes.
because I don't mean just in a metaphorical sense. I mean the actual, tangible, biological energy it takes to constantly defend your identity.
It's exhausting.
Really is. Just think about the mental bandwidth required to, maintain your opinions, your social status, your desperate need to be right in an argument.
Absolutely.
We spend the vast majority of our lives building up this armor, operating under the assumption that it keeps us safe. But we rarely step back to ask whether that very armor is the mechanism making us miserable.
Well, because it creates a state of perpetual hypervigilance, right? You end up guarding a fortress that is, structurally speaking, completely invisible.
Wow. An invisible fortress.
Exactly. The cognitive load of maintaining that illusion is just staggering when you consider how much of our daily anxiety stems purely from perceived threats to the self rather than actual physical threats to the body.
Yeah, that distinction between the self and the body is really the anchor for what we are getting into today for this deep dive.
It's a perfect framing for it.
Because today, we're looking at a centuries-old poetic text. It's a Shabad, which translates to a sacred song or hymn. And this specific piece was written by Guru Ram Das Ji, the fourth Sikh guru.
Yes, and the context of how this is meant to be consumed is, it's just as important as the words themselves.
Right, because it's not just spoken, it's set in a classical musical measure called Rag Soohee.
And that musical framework is actually a crucial piece of the underlying technology of this text.
Wait, technology, how do you mean?
Well, in classical Indian musical traditions, a rag is not merely a scale or a melody in the Western sense. It's not just notes on a page.
Yeah.
It is a highly specific psychoacoustic framework. It's literally designed to induce a precise emotional state in the listener.
Oh, wow. So it's actively manipulating your state of mind.
Exactly. Rag Soohee, historically, is deployed to evoke feelings of profound devotion, deep love, and a very specific kind of intense spiritual longing.
So even before you hear the words.
Right. Before your conscious mind even processes the first syllable of the text, the acoustic resonance is already shifting your nervous system out of its default defensive posture.
So it's essentially bypassing the intellectual guard dogs. I find that fascinating because our mission today is to unpack this text, and reading it genuinely feels like opening a diagnostic manual for the human condition.
It really does. It's incredibly precise.
It bypasses all those superficial symptoms of modern life and addresses the root mechanics of our deepest existential anxieties. We're going to look at how it maps out the striking contrast between fleeting worldly success and lasting inner peace, and translate these profound Gurmukhi concepts into actionable wisdom for you.
And I think the durability of that diagnosis is what really stands out here.
How so?
Well, you have a text written in the 16th century mapping the exact psychological bottlenecks we face right now in the 21st century. It proves that while our technology has changed, the human cognitive architecture really hasn't.
We are still wrestling with the exact same underlying software bug.
Absolutely. We haven't evolved past our own egos.
So to understand how this diagnostic manual works, we have to look at how it's structured. In Gurmukhi poetry, there is an anchor point, right? It's called the Raho.
Yes, the Raho. It functions as the structural and really the philosophical center of gravity for the entire piece.
And it literally translates to pause, doesn't it?
It does. When reading or singing a Shabad, this is the line where the rhythm deliberately dictates a halt. You are meant to stop and reflect because the Raho contains the main thesis.
So everything else revolves around that line.
Exactly. Every subsequent stanza is essentially an orbital body circling this singular core idea.
Well, the thesis in this particular Shabad sets an incredibly high bar right out of the gate.
It really doesn't pull any punches.
No, not at all. The author writes, and I'll just quote it here, "I have dedicated my mind and body and placed them in offering before the Guru. I have sold my head to the Guru for a very dear price."
The imagery there is intentionally visceral.
Yeah, selling the head. That's intense.
It is, because selling the head isn't a passive donation, right? It's a definitive, irreversible transaction.
I want to push back on this a little bit, though, because we obviously aren't talking about a literal decapitation here.
No,
We are talking about trading in the ego, the intellect. But from an evolutionary psychology standpoint, the ego is a survival tool.
Sure, it keeps you alive in a physical sense.
Right. It's what helps us establish boundaries, secure resources, and, navigate a competitive world. So why does this text frame the surrender of the intellect as a very dear price rather than just like a total collapse of human functioning?
It's a great question.
Why are we being asked to sell the very operating system that keeps us alive?
Okay, well, framing it as an operating system is actually the perfect way to look at this. The text does not advocate for becoming a non-functioning entity.
Okay.
Instead, it views the ego not as the core operating system, but as this massive, resource-heavy background application that has just slowly taken over all your processing power.
Well, I like that analogy. So it's draining the battery.
Completely draining it. Your head, in this metaphor, is your stubborn self-will. It's the constant internal monologue that insists on separation, the voice saying, I am distinct from the universe, I am in control, I must protect my narrative at all costs.
It's like a computer that has its hard drive completely filled with malware.
Yes,
You
perfect.
can't just install new, highly efficient software on top of it. The corrupted files are taking up all the space. You have to undergo the painful process of formatting the drive, wiping everything you thought was important before the system can actually run the way it was designed to,
And that formatting process is the very dear price.
because it hurts.
It's agonizing. The guru is acknowledging that this is an agonizing process. Letting go of your intellectual arrogance, surrendering the deeply ingrained belief that you know what is best for you that demands the highest price you can possibly pay.
Because you are literally paying with your constructed identity.
Exactly. The friction of surrender is immense. The ego is highly effective for surviving in the physical, competitive realm, sure, but it is an absolute prison in the realm of deep, lasting peace. You have to clear the corrupted hard drive to make space for a permanent operating system.
Okay, so if we are wiping the hard drive and going through the sheer agony of dismantling our identity, we need to know what we are getting in return.
You need the new software.
Right. What is the new operating system?
Yeah.
And the text doesn't leave us hanging. It actually provides the solution right there in the opening lines.
It lays it out immediately.
The author states that by chanting and vibrating Har Har name, all poverty and problems have all been eradicated, and the fear of birth and death has been erased through the Guru's Shabad, the word.
So the concept of Har Har name requires some careful unpacking here.
Yeah, let's break that down for the listener.
Naam essentially translates to the name of the Lord God, or the Supreme Being, the universal truth. But the mechanism described here, vibrating the name, is critical to understand.
Because it sounds a bit like chanting a spell, right?
Right, but this is not rote memorization. It is not the repetition of a magic phrase to manifest physical wealth.
So it's not a transactional spell. It's not, I say these words 100 times and my bank account fills up.
Far from it. The text speaks of vibrating the name, which points to resonance.
Like acoustic resonance.
Exactly like that. In physics, when you vibrate a tuning fork, objects nearby with the same natural frequency begin to resonate in sympathy. Vibrating the name is a somatic, psychological, and spiritual alignment.
Oh, wow. So you're tuning yourself.
Yes, it is the practice of tuning your individual consciousness to the frequency of universal truth. When you achieve that resonance, your entire perception shifts.
That completely reframes the line about poverty and problems being eradicated. Because if we are talking about universal resonance, the poverty being referenced isn't a lack of currency.
No, not at all.
It's spiritual bankruptcy. It's that deep, gnawing, existential void. You know, the feeling that you never have enough, or worse, that you internally are never enough, no matter what you achieve.
And that existential void is the ultimate driver of human suffering.
Right.
When your consciousness aligns with the universal truth, that specific brand of spiritual poverty just evaporates. The text also claims this alignment erases the fear of birth and death.
Which is huge.
It's everything. That fear is the bedrock of all human anxiety. Every insecurity, every neurotic behavior stems from the subconscious terror of our own impermanence.
But when you tune out of the ego's frequency,
Which is obsessed with the temporary physical body.
yeah, and tune into the name, you begin to identify with the eternal. The phrasing the author uses next provides a phenomenal image for this. The text says that through serving the unmoving, unchanging Lord, one is absorbed in peace.
Absorbed is such a key word there.
It is, because when you think about the human ego, it is inherently reactive. It functions like shifting tectonic plates.
Oh, that's a great way to picture it.
Right. It moves with every slight, every compliment, every perceived failure. Yeah. Your daily life is essentially a constant low-grade earthquake.
Constantly trying to find balance.
But the name is described as unmoving. It is the solid bedrock beneath those plates. If you can manage to anchor yourself to the unmoving bedrock, the tectonic shifts on the surface simply cannot shake you anymore.
And notice that specific verb you pointed out, absorbed. The text doesn't say you will occasionally experience peace or that peace will be a temporary byproduct of your actions.
It's as you are absorbed into it.
Right. It is the dissolution of the boundary between the observer and the observed, like a drop of water falling into the ocean. The drop ceases to exist as an independent, vulnerable entity.
It just becomes the ocean.
It takes on the unshakable properties of the ocean itself, yes.
That is an incredible promise, but it creates a massive structural problem for anyone who chooses to ignore it.
Well, there are consequences, certainly.
If the path to peace requires wiping the ego and anchoring to the unmoving truth, what happens to the people who double down on the malware? What happens to the people who build their entire existence on those shifting tectonic plates of worldly power?
Right. And the Shabad takes a very sharp analytical turn here to examine that exact scenario.
It gets pretty dark.
It does. It moves from a theoretical framework into a really harsh diagnosis of cause and effect. It completely strips away the romanticism of worldly success.
It sets up a stark contrast between the spiritually wealthy person we just analyzed and the kings and rulers of men.
Right.
The author notes that these kings enjoy pleasures and delights, but they operate entirely without the name. Then comes the warning, and this is intense. Death seizes and dispatches them all.
It's very blunt.
Very. But the psychological diagnosis goes even deeper. The text states, "The righteous judge of Dharma strikes them over the heads with his staff, and when the fruits of their actions come into their hands, then they regret and repent."
So we really need to look closely at the Gurmukhi concept introduced here, Dharman Rai, the righteous judge of Dharma.
Because it sounds a bit like the boogeyman.
It does. It is very easy for a modern listener to interpret this as a punitive mythological figure, like a deity just handing out arbitrary punishments.
Like a guy with a stick waiting to hit you.
Right, but that's not it at all. Dharman Rai represents the inescapable impartial law of karma. It's the universal mechanism of cause and effect.
Okay, which means it's not a judgment based on anger, but more of a mathematical balancing of the equation.
Exactly, a balancing of the scales.
The text specifically mentions when the fruits of their actions come into their hands. That implies a harvest. You are simply reaping the exact seeds you planted. If you planted a life rooted entirely in superficial power, domination, and sensory pleasure, the harvest is going to reflect that shallow root system when the external conditions inevitably change.
And the psychology of this is just devastating when you think about it.
Walk me through that.
Well, imagine a king. A king spends a lifetime cultivating an identity based on absolute authority over the physical realm. They believe they dictate reality.
Their ego is as big as it can possibly get.
Right. But Dharman Rai represents the truth that rules over the kings. When age, illness, or death eventually strips away the illusion of their power, they are left holding nothing but the fruits.
Which in this case is a bad harvest.
It's the suffering they caused, the empathy they bypassed, the spiritual void they completely ignored, that sudden crushing collision with reality that is the strike of the righteous judge.
You know, there is a brilliant structural trap the author has laid out here, and it connects all the way back to the Raha we talked about at the beginning.
Oh, about selling the head.
Yes. Think about it.
Yeah.
Where does the righteous judge strike the kings?
Over the heads with his staff.
Yeah, exactly. Over the heads with his staff. The spiritually wise person we discussed at the very beginning already voluntarily sold their head to the guru. They formatted the drive. They gave up the ego.
Which leaves Dharman Rai with no target.
Yes. That is the structural vulnerability. The kings refused to surrender their heads, they inflated their intellects, they fortified their egos, and they clung to their self-importance.
By desperately protecting their heads, they inadvertently built the exact target that karma eventually strikes.
It's not a divine punishment, it is a structural inevitability. It's like a tall, rigid building is the one that snaps during the earthquake, while the low, solid foundation remains perfectly fine.
The irony is profound there. The very mechanism they thought made them invincible, their inflated ego, is precisely what shatters.
And the text notes that when this happens, they regret and repent, but it is an observation of timing, isn't it?
Yeah, the realization comes after the structure has collapsed. The time for proactive surrender has already passed.
So we are left with a massive problem. If the ego is a trap, and building an empire just guarantees a harder, more devastating fall, How do we actually escape this cycle?
It's the ultimate question.
Because simply trying to be spiritual can quickly become its own kind of ego trip. We see that all the time, right? People taking immense pride in how detached or enlightened they are.
No, absolutely. Spiritual ego is a very real trap.
Which is just the old malware running under a new file name. So how does the author suggest we avoid this?
Well, the author provides a highly specific countermeasure. Following the terrifying fate of the kings, the tone of the Shabad shifts dramatically. It goes from observation to an expression of profound vulnerability.
It's a real pivot.
It really is. The text moves from the highest seats of worldly power to the absolute floor of human existence.
The author pleads, and this is a quote, save me, Lord, I am your humble servant, a mere worm. I seek the protection of your sanctuary."
Mere worm.
Yeah, they ask for two distinct things. The gift of humility and the blessed vision of the Saint Darshan. But I really want to look at that phrasing, mere worm.
It's jarring, isn't it?
It is. It is the ultimate antithesis to the kings. Just think about the physics of it. If you are standing on a throne, you have a long, long way to fall when the earthquake hits.
Right.
But if you intentionally lie flat on the ground, if you equate your ego to a worm in the dirt, gravity has no power over you. You literally cannot fall any further.
And that is the paradox of spiritual resilience. The kings maximize their height, which ensures their destruction. The servant minimizes their stature, ensuring total protection.
It's brilliant.
And it is vital to analyze what the author actually petitions the all-powerful, great, primal God for. They don't ask for a kingdom to rival the worldly rulers.
They aren't asking for more power.
No, they do not ask for external circumstances to change at all. They ask for the internal architecture to be secured through the gift of humility.
Because humility is the only antivirus software that keeps the ego malware from reinstalling itself.
Exactly. It maintains the wiped drive.
But that brings up the second request, the Saint's Darshan. Now, I've seen Darshan translated as sight or vision, but in this context, it seems to imply much more than just looking at a holy person. How does merely seeing someone solve the problem of the ego?
Yeah, translating darshan simply as sight really loses the operational mechanism behind it.
So what does it actually mean operationally?
Darshan is an active, resonant energy exchange. It is the uplifting, transformative experience of placing yourself in the energetic field of those who have already attained spiritual elevation.
Oh, so it goes back to resonance.
Yes. Modern neuroscience actually touches on this through the study of mirror neurons and limbic resonance. Our nervous systems literally sync with the people around us.
Okay, so it's about the environment shaping the hardware.
Exactly.
If you are surrounded by kings who are constantly reinforcing the value of power, wealth, and ego, your brain is going to wire itself to prioritize those things. It is nearly impossible to keep your ego surrendered in a room full of people fighting for dominance.
And that is exactly why the sanctuary is required. You need an environment where the surrender of the ego is not just theoretical, but physically and emotionally modeled for you.
That makes so much sense.
The community of saints, the sanctuary, provides a mirror in which you can see the unmoving truth reflected clearly. You just cannot maintain the frequency of the name in a vacuum. You need the resonant amplification of a community that is tuned to the same pitch.
It is a profound realization that this journey isn't meant to be a solitary grind. You don't have to white-knuckle it alone.
No, not at all.
The sanctuary holds the frequency for you when your own signal gets weak.
Yeah.
And I feel like that brings the architecture of this Shabad full circle. The final line of the text reads, "Servant Nanak has found the name of the Lord, and is at peace. I am forever a sacrifice to the name."
And just for context, Servant Nanak refers to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the foundational first Sikh guru whose spiritual authority flows through Guru Ram Das Ji.
Right.
And the conclusion here is definitive, is at peace. It validates the entire process.
When you look at the complete roadmap we've just traveled, the structural brilliance of it is undeniable.
It really is a masterpiece.
We started with the agonizing friction of formatting the hard drive, the high price of selling the ego. We explored the permanent, unmoving bedrock of the name that cures the existential void of spiritual poverty.
Right.
We analyzed the harsh physics of the righteous judge, where those who build their lives on the illusion of power are inevitably crushed by their own structural vulnerabilities. And finally, we found the antidote to all of it, the absolute safety of humility and the resonant power of the sanctuary.
It really forces the listener to evaluate their own daily operations. The Shabad proves that you do not need to be ruling a literal kingdom to fall into the exact same traps as the kings.
Oh, not at all. You make that choice every single day.
Every day.
Whether you are in a boardroom, navigating a difficult family dynamic, or literally just stuck in traffic. You are constantly deciding between feeding the ego, chasing the fleeting victory of winning the argument, asserting your dominance, or seeking lasting internal peace by just letting it go.
Every single interaction is an opportunity to either fiercely guard your head or to willingly sell it in exchange for the unmoving truth.
The ultimate paradox the text presents is that to gain absolute invulnerability, you have to voluntarily surrender the one piece of armor you thought you couldn't survive without. You have to become a sacrifice to the name.
Beautifully said.
So, as you go back into your day, carrying the weight of the invisible fortress you've built, consider the actual cost of your current operating system. If you were forced to put your own ego on the market today, what is the one title, the one deeply held belief, or the one ancient grievance you are clinging to that you would find hardest to sell?
That's a tough question to answer.
It is, because whatever that specific thing is, whatever you are most terrified to let go of, is exactly what your ego is using to keep you trapped. Until next time, thanks for taking the deep dive with us.